talking about? We're talking about spiders, and we're talking about pervitin', and we're talking about Bigfoot. I'm here to tell you where he's been. They call me Mr. Gulley. I'm here to save the day. They call me Mr. Gulley, and I'm gonna lead the way. They call me Mr. Gulley. I'm here to save the day. They call me Mr. Gulley, and I'm gonna lead the way. Here we go now. I'm talking about Mr. Gulley, and you don't know where he's been. Oh no, he's been right in your alley. Well, I'm Mr. Gulley, yes I am. So what we talking about? We're talking about spiders, and we're talking about pervitin', and we're talking about Bigfoot. I'm here to tell you where he's been. They call me Mr. Gulley. I'm here to save the day. They call me Mr. Gulley, and I'm gonna lead the way. They call me Mr. Gulley. I'm here to save the day. They call me Mr. Gulley, and I'm gonna lead the way. One, two, three, four. They call me Mr. Gulley. I've got something for your ear. Now it might sound kind of funny, but I'll make it very clear. So what we talking about? We're talking about spiders, and we're talking about pervitin', and we're talking about Bigfoot. I'm here to tell you where he's been. They call me Mr. Gulley. I'm here to save the day. They call me Mr. Gulley, and I'm gonna lead the way. They call me Mr. Gulley. I'm here to save the day. They call me Mr. Gulley, and I'm gonna lead the way. Here we go now. I'm talking about Mr. Gulley, and you don't know where he's been. Oh no, he's been right in your alley. Well, I'm Mr. Gulley, yes I am. So what we talking about? We're talking about spiders, and we're talking about pervitin', and we're talking about Bigfoot. I'm here to tell you where he's been. They call me Mr. Gulley. I'm here to save the day. They call me Mr. Gulley, and I'm gonna lead the way. They call me Mr. Gulley. I'm here to save the day. They call me Mr. Gulley, and I'm gonna lead the way.
Hey, everybody, what's going on? What's hot? What's hip? What's happening? What is shaking as Alliteration Week comes to a close? We did Billy Barty, Brad Bishop, Robert Redford, and now, of course, Jesse James. And let me tell you about Jesse James. A lot of you think he's a folk hero. A lot of you think he's, a a guy that you should respect, and he was like Robin Hood. You're so wrong. And there's a reason that you're wrong. It's not your fault. And I'm going to tell you why that is. But I'm also going to tell you right now, Jesse James was an absolutely horrible person. I mean, horrible person. Okay? But first, we do have some business to attend to. We had a donation made on PayPal last night. And it was the most generous donation that we've ever had on this show. Ever. And it was by our very, very good friend, one of the nicest people that you're ever going to meet online, and I assume in person, roller skater Texas girl. And for those of you who don't know who she is, I'm going to show you right here real quick. Hold on. She's getting the full stage here. Actually, this is probably big enough. It's not going to make it any bigger if I check this out. This is roller skater Texas girl. We've shown this before, but it's amazing. So here you go. Now, watch sort of in the center of the screen because this is amazing. Here we go. There she is. Here she comes. She's flying. Look at that. Backwards at that speed. And then like a 30-foot skid. I couldn't do that going forwards. Let's watch it again. This is incredible. Here, one more time. Here she comes. And crossing over and everything. And then that's a roller skater Texas girl. So thank you so very, very much for that kind donation. Of course, we do accept your super chats. You can sign up for a membership. It's only $2.99 a month for that exclusive members-only content that you so desperately crave and you so richly deserve. And then we've got the PayPal. Oh, here. I might as well put the begging banner at the bottom of the screen. There we go. That's what we're looking for here. Terry Nee is here. He apparently has seen Sasquatch. He'd be the only person ever because it doesn't exist. Sasquatch. Some people do say it that way. Uncle Fatty's here. Says, good to see you. Good to see you. As bad as John Wayne. I don't mean like bad like Jesse James. I mean he was an awful person. Just an awful person. Behind me is the James Farm. That's the farm in Missouri. Missouri, where he grew up. But good gravy. Just an awful person. An awful person. It's just awful, stacked on awful, stacked on awful, stacked on awful. Didn't Jesse James cheat on Sandra Bullock? That's the motorcycle Jesse James. This is the well-noted American outlaw, bushwhacker, bank robber, train robber, and other things equally awful. So, from time to time, I will be slipping into Southern/Confederate dialect during this because that's another awful thing about him. Very much into the Confederacy, even after the war was over. He wasn't willing to let it go. Anyway, Jesse Woodsome James. Okay, let's start talking correct. This will help me. Jesse Woodson James was born September 5th, 1847, Clay County, Missouri. Now, this area of Missouri that we grew up in was settled by people from the upper South, like Kentucky and Tennessee, and it was called Little Dixie for that reason. And he had two siblings, one of which you may have heard of, his brother, Frank James, right? Frank James. And then his sister, Susan Lavinia James, who never did anything bad. She was a good egg, a straight arrow. Honest as the day is long. Why, I heard tell she'd bake an apple pie for a neighboring stranger. Anyway, his father, Robert S. James, farmed commercial hemp. Hey, Uncle Fatty, check that out. Farmed commercial hemp. That was his job. He was a hemp farmer. Before he came to Missouri, he was also a Baptist minister. And after he married, he moved to Bradford, Missouri, and he helped found William Jewell College in Liberty, Missouri. And he owned 6 slaves and 100 acres of farmland. So Robert, his dad, Jesse James' dad, he traveled out to California during the gold rush to minister to those searching for gold out there. There's gold in them there hills. Oh, dear Lord, please smile upon these simple but pious gold farmers, he was reported to have said. And he died out there yonder when Jesse was 3 years old. So after his dad's death, his widow, Jesse James' mother, who was named Zerelda, you can't make this up, right? She remarried twice, first to Benjamin Sims in 1852, and then didn't last long because in 1855, she married Dr. Reuben Samuel, who moved right into the James home, that place right yonder behind me there. You better look at it. There you go. It's not much to look at. Jesse's mother and Dr. Samuel had 4 children together, and one of them's name was Fanny, and another's name was Archie. Just felt like mentioning that. Zerelda and Samuel acquired a total of 7 slaves who served mainly as farmhands in their tobacco cultivation. They grew tobacco on this farm. So, now, one thing you got to know about that James family. Missouri was a state that was kind of split down the middle, Union or Confederate. But the area they were from was very Confederate, right? And they had way more slaves there than other parts of Missouri. Way more. It was called Clay County, right? And they were very, very southern. Okay? There were a lot of fights and various uprisings regarding the issue of slavery, for which the James family they were all on board with the slavery thing. Did I mention they were awful, awful people? They just every awful thing that could happen. So the backdrop to this is the buildup to the Civil War. As this is going on, here's a picture of young Jesse James at about age 15. Who put all the scratches in our Jesse James photo? Who's responsible for that around here? Please, I presented you a pristine... Anyway. So after a series of campaigns and battles between conventional armies in 1861, guerrilla warfare gripped Missouri, Josie Wales and all that, and the Confederate bushwhackers, they was known as bushwhackers, and they took on the Union forces, and these were bitter conflicts. I mean, and very horrible atrocities committed by both sides. And it's not put it on one side. People having their skin peeled off and scalped and burned alive and just awful stuff. So the Union enforced martial law, and they would raid homes and arrest civilians and execute them, and they would just banish Confederate sympathizers from the state. Well, of course, the James family sided with the Confederates, right? And therefore, Jesse James' brother Frank joined the bushwhackers, right? Fought at the Battle of Wilson's Creek in August of 1861. But he fell ill and returned home soon afterward. And he was identified in 1863 as a member of a guerrilla squad that operated all over Clay County. And in May of that year, the Unionists raided the Jesse James farm looking for Frank and the group he belonged to, the bushwhackers. And they tortured Dr. Samuel, including briefly hanging him from a tree, and they bullwhipped young Jesse James, reportedly. As you will get to know, the Jameses weren't great at telling the truth. Why? Because they were awful, awful people. Awful, awful people. Which brings us to Quantrill's Raiders. Okay, Frank James eluded capture and was believed to have joined Quantrill's Raiders, which was a legendary, bloodthirsty, broke all the rules group of sort of renegade, vigilante bushwhackers. And he apparently took part in a notorious massacre of 200 men and boys in Lawrence, Kansas. Awful, awful people. Frank followed Quantrill to Sherman, Texas, just about here now, 60 miles from where I'm sitting here right now, in the winter of 1863 and 1864. And in the spring, he returned in a squad which was commanded by Fletch Taylor. Fletch. And after they arrived in Clay County, 16-year-old Jesse James, there he is in all his glory, joined in Fletch Taylor's group. Now, Fletch Taylor, he was severely wounded in the summer of 1864, lost his right arm to a shotgun blast. Incidentally, and a little foreshadowing here, not the first time one of the characters in our story will lose one of their arms. This one is the good one. This is the good way that the arm got lost. Okay, this is the as you hear the comparison. This is the way to lose your arm of choice, as it concerns the James family. The James brothers, not content with being part of Fletch Taylor's group and not content with being in Quantrill's Raiders, they joined an even worse bushwhacker group led by William Bloody Bill Anderson, who you did see a depiction of in The Outlaw Josie Wales. Jesse suffered a serious wound to the chest that summer, okay? And it was reported in Clay County, both Frank and Jesse, took part in the Centralia Massacre in September. And that's when they stopped a train carrying unarmed Union soldiers returning home from duty. Okay, you got to remember, this is the summer of 1860. The war is not raging like it was. These guys was sent home. They was going home unarmed. Well, the Jameses and their friends killed 22 of them. Did I also mention, because these are awful people, very awful people. They then scalped and dismembered a whole bunch of the dead. Yeah. They also ambushed a pursuing regiment and killed everyone who tried to surrender, which was more than 100 people. Just, hey, we surrender, whatever. And those people identified Frank and Jesse as being part of that. Now, as a result of their activities, the Union military just left Clay County, all right, and went elsewhere into Nebraska. After Bloody Bill was killed in an ambush in October, the James brothers separated. Frank went back with Quantrill into Kentucky, while Jesse went into Texas under the command of Archie Clement, one of Anderson's lieutenants. And he's known to have returned to Missouri in the spring. And at the age of 17, and that's how old he is in this picture that I have up right now, at the age of 17, he suffered the second of two life-threatening chest wounds when he was shot while trying to surrender. Hey, Mr. Karma, hello, how are you? My name's Jesse. Trying to surrender, get shot in the chest, and there you go. After the Civil War ends, Missouri is like deeply divided, right? Deeply divided. And the legislature in Missouri was dominated by, obviously, non-Confederates. And they passed a whole bunch of laws that excluded former Confederates from voting, serving on juries, being corporate officers, or preaching even from church pulpits. So there's this volatile, oppressive atmosphere, and the war kind of never stopped. There were clashes between individuals and gangs of veterans from both sides. Jesse, meanwhile, he recovers from his chest wounds at a boarding house in Harlem, Missouri, where he was tended to. Have I mentioned that he's an awful, awful person? Where he was tended to by his first cousin, Zerelda Z. Mims, named after Jesse's dear sainted mother. Jesse and his cousin Zerelda began a 9-month courtship that culminated in their marriage. First cousins. Yeah. Meanwhile, Archie Clement kept his band together and continued bushwhacking and harassing members of the Republican authorities. They were also likely the culprits in the first daytime bank robbery in United States history during peacetime. The robbery of the Clay County Savings Association in Liberty, Missouri. There it is. And by the way, when you think about 1864, that doesn't look like a bank I'd want to, you know what I mean? It's like, man, that thing looks pretty buttoned up. You know, during the gang's escape from town, an innocent bystander, 17-year-old George C. Jolly Wymore, a student at William Jewell College, the college his dad had helped found, was shot dead on the street. So, yeah. So these guys kept doing other robberies and became very well known, okay? As history passed, Frank and James were credited with being the leaders in these robberies, although it's probably more likely that they were just part of it and that everybody kind of was a leader. And Jesse claims he was bedridden at the time. Who's going to believe that guy? He married his cousin, for crying out loud. June 13th, 1866 in Jackson County, Missouri. The gang freed 2 jailed members of Quantrill's gang, killing the jailer in the process. And the Jameses were definitely part of that. Now, local violence continued to increase in the state, and the governor, Thomas Clement Fletcher, had gotten the militia together and wanted to do away with all this guerrilla activity. And Arch Clement said, I don't care. I'm going to keep robbing and bushwhacking and stealing and shooting and killing. And decided that he was going to get his guys to just occupy the town of Lexington, Missouri on Election Day in 1866. And the state militia responded by shooting Clement dead. And James in later years wrote very bitterly about this because, you know, obviously he had a right to be upset that the guy that he was palling around with that was killing random people actually got killed because he tried to take over a town on Election Day. Go figure. This was actually the first instance in the United States of the term FAFO. Just thought I'd throw that in there. Just came up with that. Pretty darn proud of it. The survivors of Clement's gang continued to conduct bank robberies during the next 2 years, although the numbers of this group, it was a big group, kind of a sizable group, the numbers dwindled. And why did the numbers dwindle? I hear you cry out. Say, Tom, why did the numbers dwindle on these fellas? Well, arrests, gunfights, and the ever popular lynchings. Yes, they were lynched. Why? Because they were awful, awful, awful people. Now, while they later tried to justify robbing the banks, most of the targets were small local banks, so they were really just hurting the people they were claiming to be supporting, okay? Give me a quick example. May 23rd, 1867, they robbed a bank in Richmond, Missouri, in which they killed the mayor and 2 other people. Yeah. They also, at this time, met someone they would later pal around with a lot, which was a bandit outlaw named Cole Younger. Jesse James didn't become well known personally, though, until December of 1869, when he and Frank robbed the Daviess County Savings Association in Gallatin, Missouri. The robbery didn't hardly never even get them very much money. No, sir. They didn't make a lot of scratch on this particular robbery, but Jesse himself is believed to have shot and killed the cashier, Captain John Sheets. And why did he do this? Because he mistakenly believed him to be Samuel P. Cox, the guy who killed Bloody Bill Anderson. So he killed a guy accidentally. And why did he do it? Because he was an awful, awful, awful person. He claimed he was taking revenge, and he and Frank made a daring escape through the middle of a posse and got a huge bunch of news coverage for the first time. Newspaper, of course. In fact, an 1882 history of Daviess County said, "The history of Daviess County has no blacker crime in its pages than the murder of Captain John W. Sheets." Yeah. It was also at this time that the first civil case involving Frank and Jesse was filed. Now, this is not necessarily paper from that civil case, but it is a document that's legal against the James brothers. So I'm showing it for period atmosphere. And wait till you, this story just, wait till you hear this. Frank and Jesse had this case filed against them in the Common Pleas Court of Daviess County in 1870. Now, in the case, Daniel Smoot asked for $223.50 from Frank and Jesse James to replace a horse, saddle, and bridle stolen as they fled the robbery of the Daviess County Savings Bank. The brothers denied the charges, saying they were not in Daviess County on December 7th, the day the robbery occurred, which is malarkey because everybody saw them. Everybody was there. They later failed to appear in court, and Daniel Smoot didn't get his horse money. But the 1869 robbery did mark the emergence of Jesse James as the most famous of the surviving Confederate bushwhackers. And it was the first time that he was publicly labeled an outlaw by Missouri Governor Thomas T. Crittenden, who wasn't exactly Jesse James, but he was a guy that would pull a fast one on you too, as I will tell you about in a few minutes. And it was the beginning of an alliance after this happened. And this alliance is the reason that you think Jesse James was a good guy, okay? It was an alliance between Jesse James and a guy named John Newman Edwards, who was the editor and founder of the Kansas City Times. Now, Edwards was a former Confederate cavalryman, and so he was very sympathetic to the return of power to secessionists in Missouri. And 6 months after the Gallatin robbery, Edwards published the first of many letters from Jesse James to the public asserting his innocence. So this newspaper man basically let Jesse James tell whatever story he wanted about what had happened, and he'd publish it in the paper. And so that's how he got this Robin Hood. He's just a good old Southern boy. He didn't ever hurt nobody. Didn't hurt him first. That's where all of that began. And over time, the letters became more and more political. And Jesse asserted the fact that he was the downtrodden one and that they were, unfair to him and that he was being persecuted when he was shooting all those innocent people and scalping them and dismembering them and all that stuff. Yeah. So, and he expressed great pride and loyalty in the Confederate effort, the whole thing. Not only that, but Edwards would write these very glowing, admiring editorials, and he became a symbol of Confederate defiance during Reconstruction after the Civil War. And his own initiative in creating this mythical profile, wow, it doesn't really hold up to the light of most historians and biographers. But the tension in the politics at the time did make him quite, a celebrity. Now we get to the Jameses reuniting with Cole Younger. And Cole Younger had 4 brothers, John, Jim, Bob, as well as Clell Miller. Clell. That's quite a name. And some other former Confederate soldiers. And they formed what was known as the James Younger Gang, with Jesse James being the superstar of that group, the most well-known one. And they carried out a string of robberies from Iowa to Texas and from Kansas to West Virginia. They robbed banks. They were not picky about robbing. Because why? Because they were awful people. I'm going to get to some of your comments here in a minute. Banks, stagecoaches, a fair in Kansas City, and they would ham it up for the crowd when they were doing these robberies. They would rob unsuspecting, unarmed, not sophisticated, not coordinated people, and just shoot it up and all that great stuff. Yeah. And that's about when they started getting into train robbing. They did that first in Adair, Iowa, on the Rock Island line, which is a mighty good line. They stole about $3,000. That's about $79,000 in today's money. And when they did this, they wore Ku Klux Klan masks. Why? Because they were awful people. The Klan had been suppressed in the South by President Grant's use of the Enforcement Acts, and they thought that would be fun. Now, the gang's later train robberies were not as severe as this one. They held up passengers only twice. Usually, they would choose to take all the contents of the express safe in the baggage car. But John Newman Edwards, the guy from the Kansas City Times, he made sure to highlight their techniques when he created this image of, Jesse James doesn't want to hurt nobody. He'd never do nothing like that. He's just a good old boy. Doesn't want to hurt nobody. That's not what he want to hurt nobody. He's just a good old, yeah. There's another awful thing coming up in the story. So probably now is a good time for me to pause and get to some of your comments. You've been very patient. But be advised, another awful thing is about to occur. A very awful thing. In addition, after that awful thing, did I mention somebody's arm got blown off? That's not the next awful thing. That's an awful thing that will come up later. I just didn't want you to think you were missing out on the arm getting blown off like I told you about. Lord knows I couldn't live with myself. I'm sorry. I'm looking at what I wrote here, and it's awful. It's just awful. What do we got here? What do we got in this here? Uncle Fatty said the Navy supplemented the hemp farms for their big old ropes. Yes. Yes, hemp ropes were all the rage. They were the ropes. The hemp is good for making them a rope. Grandpa James was Pale Rider. He could have been. I don't know. The Union had ice. I don't know. They were kind of awful people. The show today is very good. Thank you so much. Forever Pugwash. Appreciate that. Positive Patriots here. Good to see you. Lupin Reiging. Good to see you, my man. I was really enjoying the show today. Well, thank you. Judy Ted said, thank you for not talking about the Dabbleverse today, Tom. Well, I kind of am, because they are just awful, awful people. No, there's some okay people in the Dabbleverse. I have friends in the Dabbleverse. I do have to say, there's people I respect in the Dabbleverse. There's people I think are talented in the Dabbleverse, and it dismays me that they're not doing more with their talents. But what the heck? Why do they care what I think? I won't get as many views this month as they get in one show. So, I mean, they have no... What is FAFO? One of your friends at school will tell you. Bloody Bill cannot be trusted. Boy, that's true. Jared's here. H2BH. H2BH to you, Jared. Very nice. And here's our good friend Doopa Doopa Doo. Hello, Tom and chat. If I learned anything from the Brady Bunch, Jesse James was a real jerk. Jesse. I don't know what that means, but people getting upset. Okay, I promised you a really awful thing. By the way, here's a historical site from that Iowa robbery. From that robbery down in Iowa. All right. In 1874, the Adams Express Company turned to the Pinkerton National Detective Agency to stop the James Younger Gang. And them Pinkertons worked primarily against urban professional criminals, as well as providing industrial security, such as strike breaking. But because the gang received support by many former Confederate soldiers in Missouri, they eluded the Pinkertons. Yes, Joseph Witcher, an agent dispatched to infiltrate Zerelda Samuel's farm, was soon found killed. Two other agents, Captain Lewis J. Lull and John Boyle, were sent after the Youngers. Lull was killed by two of the Youngers in a roadside gunfight on March 17th, 1874. Before he died, Lull fatally shot John Younger, so he killed John Younger. A deputy sheriff named Edwin Daniels also died in the skirmish. It was a skirmish, I say. Now, because all this happened, Alan Pinkerton himself, the founder, the leader of the Pinkertons, he took on the case as a personal vendetta. And he started working with Unionists, people loyal to the United States who lived near the James family farm. And on the night of January 25th, 1875, he raided a stage and staged a raid on the house you see behind me, the homestead. Now, got an awful thing to tell you about, but it's historical. Pinkerton detectives threw an incendiary device into the house, and it exploded, killing James' young half-brother Archie, who was named for Archie Clement. And wait for it, blowing off one of Zerelda Samuel's arms. Blew it clean off. That's terrible. Afterward, Pinkerton denied that the raid's intent was arson, but biographer Ted Yeatman found a letter by Pinkerton in the Library of Congress in which Pinkerton declared his intention was to burn the house down. Didn't say nothing about blowing off old lady Samuel's arm, but still. Now, a lot of residents were outraged by this raid on the family home. The Missouri State Legislature, in reaction to this, narrowly defeated a bill that praised the James and Younger brothers and offered them amnesty for all their past misdeeds. All of them. And as I've mentioned, they have some serious past misdeeds. Why? Because they were awful, awful people. Now, by this time, people loyal to the Confederacy had gained the right to vote and hold office. And a lot of them were voted into the legislature, and they voted to limit the size of rewards that the governor could offer for fugitives. And so they were kind of protected. Okay, the rewards weren't big enough for somebody to go, okay, I'll go ahead and turn them in, right? So, yeah, they had protection from the local government. And a lot of that was due to these false news stories that James Edward Newman been publishing out of Kansas City way, down yonder way. Yeah. By the way, during this time, Frank and Jesse killed several people they merely suspected of helping the Pinkertons. They had no proof, no nothing, just thought, I think he did it, let's kill him. So there's that. Yeah. Now, all good things must come to an end. And that was the case for the James Younger gang. In September of 1876, on the opening day of hunting season in Minnesota, the James Younger gang attempted a raid on the First National Bank of Northfield, Minnesota. Yes, they did. The robbery quickly went wrong, however, and after the robbery, only Frank and Jesse remained alive and free. Okay? Yeah. The gang attempted to rob the bank in Northfield about 2 p.m. And to carry out the robbery, the gang divided into two groups. 3 men went in the bank, 2 guarded the doors outside, and 3 remained near a bridge across the square. The robbers inside the bank were thwarted when acting cashier Joseph Lee Haywood refused to open the safe, falsely claiming that it was on a time lock, even as they held a Bowie knife to his throat and cracked his skull with the pistol butt. Assistant cashier Alonzo Enos Bunker was wounded in the shoulder as he fled through the back door of the bank. And meanwhile, the citizens of Northfield were suspicious of the men guarding the door, and they raised the alarm. The 5 bandits outside fired into the air, thinking that they would clear the streets. And they were partially right and partially successful. The streets did clear. It's just that the townspeople dove for cover and fired back from highly protected positions. So they scatter, but they weren't scattering to run away. They were scattering to get behind a wagon and, you know what I'm saying? And draw a bead on them. Anyway, they shot 2 bandits dead and wounded all of the rest of them in the barrage. Inside, the outlaws turned to flee, and as they left, one shot the unarmed cashier Haywood in the head. Nobody knows who actually did that. But I'm putting my money on Frank or Jesse. Why? Because they were awful, awful people. That's why. The gang barely escapes Northfield. They left their 2 dead buddies behind. They killed Haywood, and they also killed Nicholas Gustafsson, a Swedish immigrant from the Millersburg community west of Northfield. And a huge manhunt takes place, right? The gang, just because they're awful, awful people, they burned 14 mills in the county after the robbery. Burn them to the ground. The James brothers eventually split from the others and escaped to Missouri. The militia soon discovered the Youngers and one other bandit, Charlie Pitts. Pitts died in a gunfight, and the Youngers were taken prisoner. So Frank and Jesse are the only ones that remained free. And that's when Frank and Jesse start just bouncing around. They went to Nashville, changed their names. Frank was going to settle down. Jesse was restless. He started a new gang and held up a train in Glendale, Missouri. But these people in the new gang weren't former soldiers. They weren't battle tested. They just weren't any good. They were amateurs, right? And that robbery was the first in a spree of crimes. A federal paymaster was robbed, 2 more train robberies. But they didn't have these hard-nosed killer types. And the gang soon turned against each other and were captured. James was fed up with the other members and may have killed one of them and scared the rest off. We don't know. Actually, I know he did. He did that. You know, my money's on he did that. I don't think you'd lose money betting on Jesse James always doing the most awful thing. After all, that's what he's done up to now, right? They robbed 2 stores in far western Mississippi, left with $2,000 in cash from the second robbery, and went into some abandoned cabins. Some law enforcement officers and a posse attacked and killed 2 of the outlaws. Didn't catch the whole gang. And local Tennessee people are getting suspicious. The brothers reunite. They go back to Missouri because they think they're safe there. Jesse moved his family to St. Joseph's, Missouri, which I've spent some time in. It's a lovely town. When, of course, super awful people aren't there. This is in 1881. It wasn't too far for where they were born and raised. Frank, though, says, I've had enough of this. He moves to Virginia. And their thought was, we're going to stop with the crime thing. We got enough money. We can do other things. Well, with his gang nearly annihilated, Jesse James only trusted 2 people, the Ford brothers, Charlie and Robert. Now, Robert, known as Bob, he was in secret negotiations with Missouri Governor, as I mentioned earlier, Thomas Crittenden. And they had begun to spin a plan to capture the outlaw. Crittenden made the capture of the James brothers his top priority. He even mentioned it in his inaugural address. Right? And if you remember, he was barred by the law from offering a large reward. But what he did was went to the railroad companies and said, I can't offer a reward that's big. Why don't you do that for me? And the railroad people said, yeah, okay. So he put up $5,000, the railroads did. And that was like $100,000 in today's money. So on April 3rd, 1882, after eating breakfast, both of the Fords and the Jesse James guy went into the living room before traveling to another city for a robbery, right? He's starting to get very suspicious of the Fords, particularly Robert, for good reason. And he very famously walked across the living room and laid his revolvers on a sofa. He turned and noticed a dusty picture above the mantel and stood on a chair to clean it. Okay? And that's when Robert Bob Ford drew his weapon and shot the unarmed James in the back, right in the back of the head. They identified him from 2 previous bullet wounds and a partially missing middle finger, and that's how they positively identified the body. Now, luckily, we have a stunningly lifelike representation of that happening. There you go. Feels like you were there, doesn't it? Really? Yeah. So the death of Jesse James became a national sensation. And the Fords didn't try to hide that they did it, even though there were a lot of people that really loved Jesse James. Of course we did it. They, posed with people. They surrendered to authorities and were immediately charged with first-degree murder. But Crittenden was in on it because in the course of a single day, they were indicted, pleaded guilty, sentenced to death by hanging, and then granted a full pardon by the governor. So that quick pardon suggests that he knew they were going to kill him rather than capture him. And the implication that the chief executive of Missouri conspired to kill a private citizen startled the public, and it just added more and more and more to Jesse James' notoriety. And speaking of his notoriety, there he is in his more restful moments, meaning he's dead. The Fords thought they were going to get all of the reward. They didn't. They only got a small portion of it. Sheriff James Timberlake and Marshal Henry H. Craig, who were law enforcement officials active in the plan, they were in on it too, got most of the bounty. But the Ford brothers starred in a touring stage show where they reenacted the shooting. And public opinion was split down the middle. Some people were happy they did it. Some people hated them for doing it. Suffering from tuberculosis, which was incurable at the time, and of course a morphine addiction, Charlie Ford committed suicide. What he did in May of 1884 in Richmond, Missouri. Bob Ford operated a tent saloon in Creede, Colorado, and about 11 years after he shot Jesse James, in June of 1892, Edward O'Kelly went to Creede, loaded a double-barreled shotgun, entered Ford's saloon and said, "Hello, Bob," before shooting him in the throat, killing him instantly. Now, O'Kelly was sentenced to life in prison, but his sentence was subsequently commuted because of a 7,000 signature petition in favor of his release. So he was pardoned in 1902. James's original grave was on his family property, but later moved to a cemetery nearby. The original footstone is still there, but the family has replaced the headstone. James' mother, Zerelda Samuel, wrote the following epitaph for him: "In loving memory of my beloved son, murdered by a traitor and a coward whose name is not worthy to appear here." James's widow, Zerelda Mims James, his cousin, died alone and in poverty. Nothing on the headstone about, and he was an awful, awful person. There are many, many, many conspiracy theories. I know you folks like conspiracy theories, that he survived that. That wasn't really Jesse James and somebody else was. There's been several documentaries. There was a guy named Frank Dalton, and in 1951, he claimed that he was Jesse James, allegedly 101 years old. Yeah, whatever. His headstone says Jesse Woodson James, excuse me. And it's been disputed and disputed and disputed. There are a million museums and sites devoted to Jesse James. The James Farm, the James Home Museum, the James Bank Museum, the First National Bank of Northfield, the Heaton Bowman Funeral Home where they did the autopsy, the Jesse James Tavern, the National Park Service. Apparently, Jesse James has a historical connection to the Mammoth Cave National Park in Kentucky, having occupied some of the inner areas during his escapes from the law. These have been disputed, And there are a number of festivals in honor of Jesse James. Northfield, Minnesota, the town that shot back, they have the Defeat of Jesse James Days. It's a huge outdoor celebration, one of the largest in Minnesota, every September after Labor Day. And they reenact it and everything. Yeah. There's a fair at the Jesse James Boyhood Home. There's a Victorian festival in Jersey County, Illinois, where they tell Jesse James history and stories. Russellville, Kentucky, where the Southern Bank was robbed in 1868. They do a reenactment of the robbery every year during the Logan County Tobacco and Heritage Festival. The small town of Oak Grove, Louisiana, has a Jesse James Outlaw Roundup Festival in mid-autumn. Pineville, Missouri, they go on and on and on and on. And I'm here to tell you, that is wrong. And why is it wrong? Because Jesse James was an awful, awful person. Awful. Took vitamin S, yes. Vitamin S. Christian Slater's here with all of his spiders again. Thank you, Christian, for being here. I always like it. Spidey Man, Spidey Man. Don't forget to up fingers. A lot of people were telling me that we got 47 or 48 likes during the show last night. I checked. We had 1. Up fingers for Tom. That's way, way off of 47 or 48. Unless people rescinded it for some reason. Unless they said, oh, we love this show. And then went, no, we really don't. Don't love it. All right, I don't have much time, but I will put the link in the thing just for a few minutes. So, Alliteration Week over. Billy Barty, Brad Bishop, Robert Redford, Jesse James. No show tomorrow. There may be a show on Saturday, a members-only show. So please get a membership, $2.99 a month. Bargain at any price, really, if you ask me. But no super chats today, of course. Yeah, I was paying attention. Thanks again to Roller Skater Texas Girl with her record-breaking donation to the show via PayPal last night. Yeah. Thanks to her for that. Thanks to her. She didn't let down the side. Some of you strap hangers could take an example from Roller Skater Texas Girl, who I'm going to show on video one more time here in just a second after I pin the link to the show. By Billy Gumbo. Oh, I'll do it. Don't you double dog dare me. I'll do it. I've done it before. I did it back in 2024, I think. Back round yonder there in 2024. Yeah, what I did there, here enough, yeah. Let's see here. Roller Skater Texas Girl is here. And by the way, she needs to know I played the video already a couple, 2 or 3 times. We're playing it again. I'm going to pin that message. We're going to pin that sucker. And then we're going to get rid of Jesse James because, after all, he was an awful, awful person. Let's get our... First of all, let's do that. There you go. Roller Skater Texas Girl. Here she is in all of her glory. Look at that. You know, you think it's amazing because she's going backwards so fast for so far, and she does the leg crossover, 1 foot at a time thing. And that alone would be worth the price of admission. But then she does that like 40-foot skid on one leg. Just on one of her pins. Here we go. One more time. I'm sorry. That's just absolutely. And, once again, I just want to thank her very kindly for that just super, super generous, record-breaking, record-shattering donation. Yeah, don't forget to up fingers. Never trust Crittenden. I don't know. If I was a voter, I'd trust him to, collude with some varmints to kill a bigger varmint. I didn't see no 48 up fingers. Thank you so much, roller skater, Texas girl. Yes, Foxy. Look at that. Somebody girl knows how to roller skate. I don't know what it is, but you're too kind. No, I'm not. You did all the work. Don't thank me. Foxy lady. Anyway. I did my first cartwheel on skates recently. Oh, man. She's a keeper. At 58, cartwheel on skates. I can't do a cartwheel not on skates. I don't think I could do roller skates. I'm quite certain I can do ice skates. It's just different. You get the hang of it, but I grew up in a time when roller skating rinks were very popular. I actually worked at a roller skating rink as the DJ when I was in college, but I didn't roller skate there. I just DJ'd. But when I was in like junior high and high school, roller skates and roller skating were a big deal. That was like a social hangout. That's where you met the babes. Luckily in my town, we also had an ice stadium, an ice skating rink. But I remember the first time that I went roller skating, I had to have been like 13 years old. That was the first time I said swear words because I kept falling down. And I got so mad that I said swear words. And I remember thinking, I am so enraged that even though my parents didn't allow me to do that sort of thing, I was very, very obedient, they weren't there. And I deserved to use the swear words because I was falling down embarrassingly in front of people, mostly girls, that got to see me fall down. It was awful. I remember that moment vividly. Your head gets all hot and you're mad and you can't. You do that thing where you're on your back skates trying to get your balance and you're going to fall. You can't. Yeah. And I just kept thinking, if we were on ice skates right now, I'd be skating up a tarnation. So I have no idea what Monday's show is going to be. I have no idea what the members only show on Saturday will be. But it'll be something, as will Monday's show. I'll schedule those on Saturday. And we're doing away with Friday shows, folks. Unless some big whiz-bang thing happens. Those have proven to be a waste of my time and a waste of your time. And most importantly, a waste of your time. There is great shame in falling in front of the girls. That's very shameful. It's like, gosh, Dad, not in front of the guys. It's the same thing, only when the good-looking junior high girls are there, you can't fall down. One of them might want you to do the ladies' skate. And they're not going to do a ladies' skate with some stumble bum that can't, it's going to take them down with him. Nobody wants that. Nobody. But I think the main thing to keep in mind is your time is very valuable to us all. Forever Pugwash. Jared says, I'll skate. The thing to keep in mind is that Jesse James was an awful, awful person that married his second cousin. I'm over here. I don't know what's going on with this side of my hair the last 2 days. I don't know. Is there a way to get it? No, I'll fix it later. I just keep sleeping on it wrong before the show. I take a little nap and it's just not, there's no, that part there is okay, I guess. It needs to be cut. Okay, I don't think we're going to get anybody to come into the to use the link. So it was a heck of a show. We had alliteration week. I was pretty proud of that, actually. Billy Barty, Brad Bishop, Robert Redford, Jesse James. I was going to do Malcolm McLaren, but no, I couldn't. He was another awful person. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Gerald will skate. Ever try dry shampoo? Tom really brings back some life to the hair mid-afternoon. It's not the shampoo. Part of it's the way it was cut, and part of it is I always like it needs product, and I take a nap, and then I go and do the show. And I should, if I take the nap, I should jump into the shower or something. But first cousin, yeah, he married his first cousin. Yeah. Dry shampoo is a spray. It's like product. Okay. Well, I've got product. I got so much product here. When you don't cut your hair very long, product lasts for years and years and years. Tom, do you smoke cigs still? No, I do not. I had to quit. Made the decision to quit. When I've lost so much. Look at that. It's a shirt. I'm swimming in it. Lost so much weight. And I'm losing more. I'm 4 or 5 days into a 10-day fast here. Drinking water. All right, kids, unless anybody has any really awesome questions or is going to pop on, I can't believe I opened my link and nobody takes me. There's shows that just raid people that have a wide open link. Those people don't come here either. That's great, Tom. Looking svelte, Tom. I know. Look at the, it's just all. No more Earl Campbell cheddar sausages for you. Well, when I get back to eating, I can have them, but not coming up here. It's protein shakes and water. That's it. I do have to say, when I watch TV or YouTube or whatever, and I see a commercial for a restaurant or something that has food on it, it gets me thinking about what I'm going to have once it's all over. Everything looks good when you're drinking water and protein shakes. Everything, even stuff you don't like, looks just salaciously good. Have I got anything else I was supposed to talk about on this darn thing? I don't think so. Nope, that's it. That's all I got. Really all I got. Unless you want to see a picture of the... I don't want to show a picture. It's behind me. James' home. So I hope there's NFL football on tonight. I don't know who's playing, but you guys probably want to watch that. I have nothing else. I wish I had some exciting news. I don't have any exciting news. So I guess with all that being said, okay, please remember, Jesse James was an awful person. Hey, do me a favor if you could. Please like, share, subscribe, retweet, notification bell. Tell your friends. We can help grow the show a little bit here, right? There's Ken right at the last second with his creepy eyes. We just need to grow the show a little bit. Because you guys are smart people that like to hear about interesting things. That's the niche of our show. And so you have to have friends that are smart people that like to hear interesting things, right? Isn't that a thing? Or just walk up to the local public library and tell somebody. I get a feeling that a lot of people at the local public library would like this show. So, also people that think Jesse James is an awful, awful person. Those people also are the kind of people that would watch this show. So, oh, Judy doesn't have such a friend. She has 20 alts. Well, I'm sure all of your alts have friends, and you have friends here, Judy. Everyone we have the most cheerful chat room on the internet. Everyone here is your friend. Forever Pugwash says, I watch this program with my wife and children. Well, it is taking place during the family viewing hour, which actually is a thing. I may do a show on the family viewing hour. Don't tempt me. All right. With all that being said, I think that the only thing left to say is till next time. We'll see you next time.
We're talking about spiders, and we're talking about pervitin, and we're talking about Bigfoot. I'm here to tell you where he's been. They call me Mr. Gulley. I'm here to save the day. They call me Mr. Gulley, and I'm gonna lead the way. They call me Mr. Gulley. I'm here to save the day. They call me Mr. Gulley, and I'm gonna lead the way. Here we go now. I'm talking about Mr. Gulley, and you don't know where he's been. Oh no, he's been right in your alley. Well, I'm Mr. Gully, yes I am. So what we're talking